Herkese tekrar merhaba. Indie oyun sunumlarından önceki bugünkü
Hello again. So before the indie presentation, this is gonna be the last presentation that we're gonna have right now, and we'll be together with Jason Della Rocca and Tansu Kendirli. He will participate us. They're gonna talk about early stage funding and what is required for them. Now I'd like to invite them to our session right now.
Hello,
Hello, welcome.
Jason. We're waiting for you.
Okay. Well, I didn't understand.
He's announcing in Turkish. I guess you
Yeah.
didn't understand. Okay.
That's my grand entrance, standing behind stage, not knowing when to come.
Yeah. Okay.
Hello, welcome again.
Thank you.
You can start anytime you want. I'll be here helping you on the background.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. Can we start?
Yeah, of course, sure.
Yeah. Thank you, Jason. We met you. We met approximately 8 or 9 years ago. You were in the process of the building of the execution labs. Yeah. And can you introduce yourself a little bit for our audience?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Tansu, for having me. As I was saying before, I've yet to visit Turkey, so I'm honored to be here, even if it's only virtually as my first visit. But
You had invitations before.
I know. I've been invited several times, and the timing has just never worked out. So hopefully, once we're all vaccinated, I'll be able to make the trip and visit. But so I've been in the game industry over 25 years. It's been a while, and in the early years, I was more on the technology, hardware, graphics, side of things. And then many years, I was the head of the International Game Developers Association, really getting to work with amazing developers from all over the world and help to sort of improve and grow the game industry. And then around the time we met, 2011, 2012, 13 or so, I was getting Execution Lab started, which was really at the time a first of its kind incubator specifically focused on game development or game studios. And so we raised some venture funding and put a program together that would invest in startups in the game industry and help support them and mentor them and help them to succeed. And at that time, all this wild M&A activity and all the venture fund, like none of that existed. I mean, there was London Venture Partners that was, just getting started, and one or two other things, but it was really an open time. And so I did that, and then I also run something here in Canada, in Montreal, called Gameplay Space, which is a co-working space and community hub for the game industry that provides mentorship and coaching and support for game developers. And now more recently, I do a bunch of consulting work, both with studios directly in terms of business strategy and fundraising efforts and pitching and so on. And then also a very niche work with governments and industry associations around economic policy and ecosystem strategy on how to best support and grow their local game industry. It's fun stuff.
You've been advising Brazil, Colombia, many countries.
Yeah. I mean, on any given day, I'm working with the South Americans, North Americans, the Europeans, Africans, Asia, all over the place. And Tony just woke up.
Hello, Tony.
The link that's in the calendar invite someone sent, it's some random guy with a big ponytail, and he goes, "I don't know you. Are we supposed to have a meeting?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm here to speak at your conference." And he's like, "I don't have a conference." So kind of weird.
Hello, Tony. Welcome. And I just give the words to Jason to introduce himself, and I would like to give you the word now.
Okay.
Please introduce yourself to us, to our audience.
Okay, great. I'm Tony. I'm based in Hong Kong. I'm managing director at Vector Ventures. We're a stage agnostic, vertical agnostic VC, investing in quite a few different topics, gaming and entertainment being one of them. We're on our third fund right now, or I say we got 3 funds going right now. And we're definitely keen on anything gaming and anything that could tie into some of our current investments. Like I said, we're pretty stage agnostic. We prefer pre-seed, seed, and some A.
Mhm.
And we've got one of our largest investments right now is in some new game technology, kind of a collaboration layer on top of current engines and also our own runtimes and renderers. So we're pretty broad, very deep tech rooted type company, and happy to be here and participate.
Did your Vector, do you have any regional restrictions? Are you working just for Asia Pacific or worldwide?
We've got a global mandate. I would say the majority of our investments are in US and Europe. And then we've got, you start looking into Southeast Asia, China, Latin America. And then now we're kind of branching out, looking at some other aspects, Middle East, we've got some Israeli stuff. And then now through some of the stuff we've been doing out of the Middle East, Dubai especially, they're taking us down into Africa and more of a Brazil type zones.
Can you give us a little bit more information about your past? You started with Microsoft Games, I guess.
Correct. So I started in games in '92 while doing my grad school. I was on the Microsoft Flight Simulator team. Microsoft bought our game in 1995. I was at Microsoft for roughly about 14 years, and migrated from games into Microsoft Surface, Win Phone, and then ended up in Beijing. Had a research department there, productizing research and commercializing stuff for the Chinese market. I did Xbox Live for China, which never launched because they never let the consoles into the country, but we built it anyway. I've done a few startups after corporate, one in Shanghai. We were able to kind of sell off the technology. Then I did a startup in Hong Kong, and then that kind of got my team and I got kind of moved up into Zynga Beijing. After Zynga closed operations in China, it got very hard for foreign publishers to self-publish in mainland China, so they decided just to pull out of the region. That's when I moved back to Hong Kong and joined Vector Ventures, and I've been there for it's a little over 6 years, right around 6 years, a little over 6 years, something like that.
Okay, then we can start with the questions. I will start with the questions, but they are related with you both. So the first question is, what do you think are the most important factors, especially in early stage investment? I'm sure there will be maybe a different approach between you two, but I want to give you the last word to Jason.
Yeah, I mean,
especially from an investor perspective, Jason.
Yeah. This is obviously a sort of very big question to start with. I mean, in the game industry, I would say before we can even answer that question, the developer themselves need to understand what their opportunity is. And the main split we're seeing these days is the split between game as a service and game as a product. And a lot of developers don't understand that the funding sources and just the nature of the financing is different depending on what kind of stuff you're doing. And so as a quick rule of thumb, if you are doing truly games as a service, free to play, highly scalable, et cetera, multiplayer online, match-based, et cetera, then you can go knock on the door of VCs and angel investors and others that are investing at the company level.
Mhm.
If instead you are working on, a $20 Steam game or console,
Product.
premium game, then you have no business talking to VCs. The business model doesn't match, the scale doesn't match. It doesn't matter how cool, how beautiful, how nice your premium game is. It's really just, it's a oil and water difference. And so if you are working on a premium game, then you go talk to publishers, you look at doing a Kickstarter, you find royalty, investments or rev share deals. It's all project-based financing. So often when people come or applying for execution lab, you first have to sort of do that filtering. Is it suitable for project financing, game as a product premium, or is it suitable for venture financing or company level financing, which is game as a service, free to play, highly scalable? So this panel, I'm guessing we're meant to talk more about the venture side of things. And then, so assuming you pass the first filter and you are working on something gas and free to play, then it's really a question of the founding team, the scalability of the project, and then the total blank. Yeah, and just the traction so far. Like what have you actually accomplished? Like show me that the grand vision is starting to work and you have some amount of traction to validate your assumptions. But largely it's based on team first, then the potential, and then traction.
So Jason separated these two types of investments as a product, as a software as a service. Tony, do you have any different approach on that matter?
No. When it comes to games, it's kind of split that way, especially when it comes to financing options. I mean, he's spot on. I mean, there's not much to add. I mean, we can kind of dig deeper into some other aspects of what it might take to be an early stage game and looking for funding. But I mean, when I'm looking at stuff, from the venture side, it's only into equity financing into companies. We don't do any project based. So I mean, there's not much to add on that one for sure.
If I may, I mean, Tony, I'm guessing since you guys do technology plays, so that doesn't fall so cleanly within the game as a product, game as a service. Like how are you thinking about the tech side? Because often when I see tech stuff, it's like the business model doesn't necessarily get you to an exponential scale. So how do you handle the non-gaming game related stuff?
Well, it still has to show, that it has some ability to scale, and there's definitely some sort of defensible moat around it. I mean, what differentiates you from somebody else easily coming in with, let's say, a small amount of funding and a very skilled team, and they just sweep right past you due to something. So, like I said, that intrinsic value, that the value add you bring as a technology, and how that plays, and that there's a lot of times we look for, not that you're the only person in the space, but you have a predominantly better approach. Or back to what Jason said, it comes down to the team, the founders, kind of their experience level and what they're bringing, and does that really map towards shipping?
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Are you monitoring the Turkish game industry for the last 1 to 3 years or more? And how it evolved? Do you have any knowledge about that? I'm asking you both.
Yeah. I mean, as I said at the start, I mean, I haven't been to Turkey, but I know many Turkish studios and developers. I mean, of course, with the recent M&A activity, a big spotlight has been shining on the Turkish community. But Tansu, we met nearly a decade ago, and from
there was no situation like that.
Yeah, well, yeah, you were growing, you were developing, and I've done work with Turkish studios even many years before that with the IGDA, having set up some of the early chapters and activities in the region. So I would not say I'm an expert on the Turkish sector, but certainly have had interactions and contact and sort of been observing over the years. And it's great to see the kind of growth and momentum that has occurred, especially more recently.
And you, Tony?
Yeah, I mean, I have a really close friend that I work with at Zynga that's now back in Turkey, and so he's been keeping me quite abreast. I mean, I've been introduced to the guys there at Peak and that, and what I like seeing is him, there for a while, especially let's say maybe roughly 6-7-ish years ago, Turkey had a big push in like the casino style games, and a lot of companies had pretty good success in that, and now we're actually starting to see different value add type games coming, more of the freemium model is becoming along. So the industry is definitely matured, and the quality of games is definitely coming up, and being quite a bit more complex.
Yeah, especially on the scaling side, they are also much more experienced at this time.
Right, I relate it to a little bit, like you can see similar stuff happening in India right now, especially with large players that had traditionally been let's say more of app-based style games that are now moving into more real-time FPS, battle royale type stuff. You're seeing a lot more emerging there as well.
Yeah. And do you have any interest, Tony, to invest in Turkish companies or Turkish service providers for the game industry?
Well, I mean, we're very opportunistic. Like I said, we have a global mandate. We are looking for high quality companies with offer us a nice opportunity and a way to participate. And us as a company, we bring we have a venture studio model, so we can bring a lot of hands-on experience, especially when it comes to games and game development, that kind of complements the a smaller team that's in the seed or A round stage. Okay. So I mean, yeah, if we'd be more than happy to look and talk to teams and see what we can put together.
And what will be the size of the early stage developments on average? Do you have any numbers you can share with us?
On the size of the team?
No, on the size of the investment.
Oh, looking at
do you have any
let's say
restrictions, or do you have any goals to make an early stage making an early stage investment?
Yeah, so I mean, I need to see a first playable vertical slice, a very nice game design doc, and that you're showing me kind of what the final visual would be. Get me a playable so I can actually see if it's going to be fun. I mean, I don't come in at the idea stage unless maybe you've proven to ship a few titles that have you got some numbers to back that I'm this guy and I sold 10 trillion units kind of thing, right? Then I might come in on the napkin or early idea, but other than that, it's a minimum. My minimum bar is vertical slice playable. Some of the assets need to be full quality, but the entire environment does. But the fun factor needs to be there.
Okay, and the execution lab has a very different approach, I guess.
Yeah, totally different. But if you don't mind, I have some questions for Tony, because I think it's kind of important to highlight. Traditionally, at the very earliest stages, you do not get a lot of international investors. If you're raising a relatively small amount of funding, usually like the cost of figuring out the taxes and the legal issues and having specialists on both sides of the border, like it's just not worth doing a 200K deal if it's going to cost me 75,000 of lawyer and tax specialists and so on. So I'm curious to hear from Tony. I mean, you are sort of global in nature, but is there like a check size threshold that if it's too small, like it's just not worth, like it's going to cost you more for lawyers just to close the deal?
Yeah, I mean, depending on how it is, a lot of times if it's a smaller deal, we'll come in on a note, come in on a safe or a convertible note, where then there's significantly lower lawyer fees. It's like, I mean, it's early, right? So there's a gamble. I mean, you might even call it's a tracker or a punt fund type idea. So you're like, you come in on a safe, you put 250 in, and then you convert at a priced round, and then the priced round people will take care of most of that legal fee, and then you can, you might top up and do some more follow on for your pro rata or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, interesting, and it's sounds like a good approach. I think it's one of the mistakes that I often see from very early stage game developers is, there's no angels or no early stage VCs in their country, so they get on a plane to go to Silicon Valley or somewhere really far away, and the investors just don't want to deal with these small deals in an exotic region, and it's just kind of hard to structure the deal as opposed to whether it's the merits of the project.
There are 2 or 3 different stories here now in Turkey. By example, on XP team, Green Games managed to take on early seed investments around $7 million, and now they're at the second stage, and they managed to get a $50 million for the second stage. And this is a new company, but they have the necessary track record, especially on the games. Maybe Toon Blast, Toy Blast, they were the product managers and the developers of this game. So therefore they managed to get on a pretty good early stage investment.
Yeah, well, this sort of highlights one of Tony's points, is that if you have that kind of, let's call it rock star status, you
got some clout. Yeah,
you've got, I mean, and my guess is we're going to probably see more of those stories coming out of ex-Peak employees, where the VCs are like, oh, you did that at Peak and Peak sold for $1 billion. All right, well, just take my money now.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't need a demo. I don't need any traction. I don't need if I'm betting on you. We see that a lot with Blizzard. We see that a lot with Riot. It seems like every other month there's a team of ex-Riot people that, they have nothing other than a logo, and they've got millions of dollars from, Silicon Valley VC. So if you really have that, call it rock star status, you can take on good funding at a very early stage. But for the rest of us, normal people, you got to put in that sweat equity. You got to build that first table. You have to go out to the market with an MVP and get some metrics to show that your grand vision is sort of headed in the right direction. It's much harder if you don't have that kind of credibility under your belt.
Are you open to work with, especially I'm asking you, Jason, are you open to work with international companies in your enterprise execution lab?
So we did do international. I mean, execution labs right now is not taking on new cohorts. So we're in kind of a portfolio support mode. But we did a bunch of deals in Canada, a bunch in the US, and then a bunch over in Europe. London and Denmark and Romania and Slovenia and a few other places.
They didn't come to Canada.
They did come to Canada for a 3-month period.
Oh, okay.
So during a cohort, but I mean we were running as an incubator style with pitch days and workshops and mentors on site, which in a way was really exciting, because in a cohort we'd have a team from LA, a team from London, a team from Romania, 2 teams from Canada. It was kind of a really rich experience that even the teams themselves kind of learned and encouraged and supported each other. So a nice mixture there. But then the teams would go home after the 3 months. It was it wasn't some trick.
You don't need to, they stay there.
No. I mean, we were not a government, program to lure companies to move to the country or anything like that. It was really done as a way to kind of, really get in everyone's brains as much information and support as quickly as possible in that 3-month period. And then, you were free to go home. It was not as I said, it wasn't a trick to get you to come live in Canada. It was really just the most efficient way to insert the knowledge in your brain as quickly as possible.
Do you have any such kind of product, Tony? cohorts?
Yes, yeah, cohorts. Yeah, so we're partnering with a company, another VC called Sukna Ventures out of Dubai, and we're putting together a games cohort, and we're with some pretty good backers, both corporate and sovereign out of the region. And I'm happy to share. Guys, happy to have people. You can email me, and I can share information about what we're doing, and kind of when we're going to open up for applications for that cohort. We're looking at bringing in roughly 10 to 15 teams, somewhere between 5 to 7 people per team, and then it'll be the idea about it is build quick, cut fast. If it's not fun, if your game gets cut, you get absorbed into the ones that are still going, and with the goal at the end that we have somewhere between 2 and 4 games that then will get follow-on funding, and then we see where they go after that.
Will that be in Dubai or in Hong Kong?
It'll be in Dubai.
Okay.
Well, did you call that Soup Nut Ventures?
Sukna, correct.
Oh, okay. Can you spell that?
Yeah, it's Sukna.
Okay. Cool.
I want to ask from our team, they will find this and they will share the email web address with our audience for checking
Yeah,
out.
right now we're still in kind of stealth mode. We haven't announced. And that's what I said. You can email me directly, and then I'll be able to kind of give you some insider stuff and around timings and that.
So after, I want to ask a third question, and it will be also direct for you both. And after the early stage investment, what kind of supports are you giving to the companies in preparing for the second stage? Can we start with you, Tony?
Yeah. So for us, we're a private. We're basically a holding company, a private investment company that we manage funds on the side. So since we don't have a true GPLP structure, we're allowed to have an internal venture studio model where think of it, it's like in-house consulting or tech team. And so we've got everything from full stack developers, front end, back end, UI, UX, artists, designers that are on staff, and then we plug those into our investments to help bolster. It's as with most startups, you don't have a full team, right? You're a handful of people, and you're trying to wear many hats. So I bring my team in, and then we help fill those slots to keep you moving. We help you hire key people for those positions that we start filling. So then by the time you're ready for your next round, your team is built, and you basically have been trained up, and how to approach it. I mean, we can come in as dirty as we can write code, we can be a sounding board. I mean, we can get hands-on or hands-off. We're very flexible.
But this is not the case in every company.
No. It's like I said, the way we set up our corporate structure and governance allows us to do something like this, where if you're a true fund, there with a GPLP, there's certain regulations that you have to follow, and it's more like you can do introductions, you can give advice if you happen to be have a board seat, but other than that, you can't really get involved in the day-to-day of a product. Where that's kind of why we set ourselves up the way we did.
By you, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, Execution Labs was more of an incubator, so by definition, it was meant to be hands-on, and really, every day there was mentorship and workshops and tear downs and reviews of games and all that kind of stuff. So I guess both Tony and I are kind of the special cases that we don't necessarily behave as a typical VC or typical investor. That being said, you do want investors that have some industry and or operational experience, so they can give you good advice, they can check in with you, they can make some intros to key partners or platforms, and that they just understand the business, and so as you're working on the game and scaling, they kind of know what to expect. and are not really surprised by the the ups and downs of the game business. But we're quite lucky now that there are 24, if not more, game-oriented venture funds, as well as game-oriented partners at more general investment funds. Like, so someone like Andreessen Horowitz, really amazing general technology fund that they now have, a team that focuses specifically on games, versus a London Venture Partners or a Makers Fund or a Transcend Fund, which is 100% focused on games. So yeah, if you're looking for funding, at the sort of pure VC level, it's great to go with one of those teams, because then at least you're getting some smart money, some value add from their knowledge. But it's much higher level than, as Tony's saying, where he's got UX people that'll go in and rebuild your AI, or where we're running, boot camps and workshops and bringing in mentors and stuff like that. So yeah, you just understand what you're getting in addition to a check.
Okay, that's fine. And let us talk about much more about the developer studio side. And and in your on your perspective, what is the most important? What will be the most important bullet points from a studio perspective, if they have the opportunity to take an early stage investment? How they should proceed with on their relation with the early stage investors? What will be the most important topics?
Yeah, I mean, this is the investment journey or the fundraising journey is different for every case.
Let's say let's talk about a software as a service, a premium game.
Sorry, for a premium game?
No.
Oh,
the opposite.
Premium. Yeah, okay, freemium. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So I think the first thing to understand is that the funding journey is incremental. Unless you're one of those rock stars, you're not walking in the door and getting a $10 million check to do everything you need for the next 5 years.
Let's assume we are not
correct. So that means it is very much an incremental process. And normally, at the very beginning, the first investor is yourself and your partners. And this is the sort of the sweat equity. So it's you and the team, the founding team, putting in that initial effort where you're not paying yourself, you're making these personal sacrifices to kind of get things going, to put a vision into place, to start the product, to think about the long-term roadmap, etc. Then with that in place, you go convince your friends and family to invest, or what they call the love money, because only someone who loves you will be crazy enough to invest at this early stage. Or also they call the friend.
That was the case in Turkey.
Yeah, or it's friends, family, and fools kind of the phase. So now, you've got something early, you've got a team in place, you have a dream, you put in some of your own sweat equity. Now you go to the friends and families or the love money. And that, let's say, gives you a bit of money that enables you to build your prototype and sort of make some progress. Then you go see the angel investors and you say, hey, angel, we've rounded up a great team. We've put in our own sacrifice, our own sweat equity. We've collected some friends and family money. We've built a prototype. Here's the plan. This is the potential. This is the opportunity. Now we need, 250, 500K or whatever of angel money. And then the angels are, okay, we like that story. They invest. You take the angel money, you go from a prototype to an MVP, you put that MVP into soft launch, you start collecting data on player retention and engagement and, early numbers. And then with those numbers, then you go see the early stage VCs to raise, the $1 million or $2 million. But to do so, you need good looking data. And then assuming you have good looking data, those VCs then put the 1 or 2 million in. And now you're able to, grow the team, scale, get even better numbers and start generating revenue.
Yeah.
And then when you have the revenue numbers, then you go see the, let's call it the normal VCs that are now writing, you know, 5 million, 10 million, whatever dollar checks to kind of fuel your growth. That's sort of the very typical sort of increments. Obviously it changes if you know, have rock stars, you know, there's all exceptions along the way, but that's sort of what I would call the textbook timeline on the fundraising increments.
Yeah. Do you have anything to say, Tony, on that issue?
Yeah, you know, this is the best thing about, you know, getting on a panel with Jason is, you know, he explains it well enough where I just have to sit here and look pretty. So it's real good. I would kind of, let me approach it from kind of a different way. Like the early stuff is like when I'll view it as like, I want to put money in from some of these different aspects, right? Like I've done some angel investment, and, you know, that type of stuff is, you know, if I have a feeling about it, I like the guys. You mean gut
feeling?
Pardon?
You mean gut feeling?
Gut feeling. Well, even, yeah, sometimes gut feeling, but I even apply that a little bit later. I mean, I'm even if like to the point where it's like, wow, I really like this idea. I like maybe the art style. I like something about it. I'll put in my, you know, personal angel money is coming in. And then if I'm coming in at the seed round, and that, you know, I will look at different things like, you know, how robust is the game design? You know, what kind of playable do I have? One aspect I really look about is, you know, it's hard to ship, right? I mean, everybody has an idea, but it's really hard to get that thing over the line and make a product out of it. And so one of the things that first and foremost to look at is how long have these guys been working together, and how many failures have they seen together, and they're still together working and trying to be productive. That's a very positive aspect for me. And then as you go deeper into the chain, like Jason said, there's more due diligence. I start moving away from, do I like the game personally, or do I think the team is good? And it comes down to, is this game making money, right? Does this thing can it scale? Architecturally, is the back end and the server side tech large enough and robust enough that can handle, you know, some sort of, you know, millions of MMU, right? So I mean, I look at view it for more of a pragmatic approach, where Jason gave, you know, a very, very nice, this is how it potentially will work for you. I'm coming at it for, this is what I'll be looking at these individual stages.
So I guess maybe we should go on to the Q&A session, but I want to ask a last question, both of you again. Now we have a new development here in Turkey. Some funds are especially targeted on game business. They established themselves in the last 2 or 3 years. And we can also we are also seeing some integrators, which are intent to prepare the companies to the early stage investment, and then they are taking them to pitching their games to these kind of early stage funds, and they are also also eager to give their mentorship to these early stage companies. And if they manage to take a first round investment, they will also take a part of the share, a small share, not a big share. And are you open to work with such kind of integrators on your site, on your project? What can you say about that?
I mean, why do you call it an integrator as opposed to?
Because they are preparing the companies to the early stage investment. They are not especially incubators or accelerator programs. They are working mainly just like integrators or mediators, let's say, not integrators.
Yeah, it sounds more like an agent in some like a weird agent.
It does sound more like that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, listen.
How do you find that idea?
Well, at the end of the day, it depends on what percentage those integrators take, and then what role do they?
4 or 5%, not so much.
So less than 5%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think yeah, I mean, if there's this integrator that's helped you with your pitch and made introductions and hustled on your behalf a bit like an agent and did that at no cost, and then you scored a proper funding round and they took 5% or whatever, a few percentage points, I mean, that doesn't really bother me. And if they're sort of a local partner that's still kind of there to help out, that could be interesting. I think the concern would be more so if they took a very large slice of the equity.
No, they are not intent to take a. They are not intent to take a large part of it.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly. Then I don't see an issue with that, assuming they're doing a good job and they're not sort of taking much equity. I don't see a problem.
What do you think about that, Tony?
I would say you wouldn't give away. You would never give away more than 2.5% on something like that, and even that's you're pretty steep. I mean, if it's pure equity based, I'd rather see that than them taking a percentage of the fundraise. Where that's one area that I'm not too keen on. I mean, I know people do it. I know people make a living at it, but when you're out fundraising and you raise $1 million, I don't see giving them 50K of that $1 million. That's, I mean, but I am okay with doing a pure equity based. And if you believe in it and you can add value to it, that there's something to be said. I mean, connections are good. Not everybody can, be super generous and do things for free. Everybody needs to make a living. So, I mean, I'm not opposed to it. Just be careful. I would definitely have a very strong contract in place, so you knew exactly what their deliverables be and what their KPIs would be to actually earn that equity. I would also actually say that equity would have some sort of vesting period where just because I got my fundraising, you don't necessarily get your 2.5% day one. I would still, once that, there would be extra KPIs that you, as the company goes, your stuff would vest as well, where rather than me coming in and like, I know a rich guy, he gave you some money, I got 2.5%, then you never see me again. That's really not adding much value on an equity basis. Equity is a very time-driven type incentive scheme where it's long term. I admit, like, something like 3-4 year type idea.
Yeah, it's almost like an advisor. It's like an advisor.
They are much more on a hands-on approach. They are giving them on development process. They are giving mentorship to them, also on pitching process, also and the publishing process. They're always on hand. Some of them are taking hands-on approach, so they are almost in all the steps. Some of them are acting like you said, Tony, and they are mainly making that connection, and then they will go away. The first one,
to me, that would be a very low equity thing. That would be almost more like a hired gun, and then you would pay a cash fee for that, and they're gone. Where if you're giving somebody 2.5 points of your company, I mean, that's actually a significant share depending on how many founders you have, and then you start, by the time you get to your A round, I mean, you're diluting quite a bit, right? And then you just gave away 2.5 to something. But I do agree with Jason a little bit more that maybe have it be more of an advisory role, and they sign on for a 1, 2, 3, 4 year period, and then a certain amount of that vest over those periods. I think that would be a better approach.
So, okay, can we go to the Q&A session? Are you ready for that, Tony, Jason?
Yeah, sure.
If you're ready, we're ready.
I'm talking a little bit Turkish, sorry for that. Serdar. Ses verebilirsen sevinirim. Eğer sorular İngilizce varsa İngilizce soruları vermek daha mantıklı olur.
Yeah, if there's going to be English translations, so I'm just reading the English questions.
Read them for us. Okay. Please go on.
Okay. Elif Eligül asks, do you think creating spectacular monetization strategies are necessary for the global companies which you work for, or you will work for? ?
Appointed to whom?
Yeah.
And can you read this a second time?
Yeah. Do you think creating spectacular monetization strategies are necessary for the global companies which you work for or you will work for?
So, I'm not, I mean, it seems a little out of context, that
Yeah.
question,
Yeah.
but you know, more spectacular is better than less spectacular, I guess. As a general
If you
statement.
don't have a spectacular monetization strategy, that doesn't work anyway.
Yeah, I mean, this maybe goes to just sort of a general piece of truth, is that you know, someone who is investing in your company is, you know, taking shares in that company with the belief that you will do the things necessary to grow the value of those shares, and that at some point in the future they will sell those shares, either because you're going to IPO or because Zynga is going to come buy you for $1 billion. So they have to believe that you're doing the things necessary to gain that kind of value. And often that means you need to have spectacular monetization strategies. You know, if you are not building a business that has the potential to reach hundreds of millions or in that $1 billion range, then the investors are not going to back you, because they're not there to just help you out and kind of because you have a cool little game. They're there because they believe you have the potential to scale to that degree. So, I mean, it was sort of an out of context question, but again, I think, you know, better.
Thank you for answering that.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
do we have a second question, Serdar?
I don't think we don't have, and also we are out of time. Okay, we have one more question, and I think it should be the last question.
I will have a last question. Please go on.
Okay.
And I will end up with this last question.
Okay. Burak Tezateşer asks, I will change my earlier question to, okay, he asked a question on the chat before. When do you think it's a good time for company investment, and when it's a good time for a project investment for PC and console games?
Yeah, so it's not about time. Really, it's a question of, if your game is premium, then you're going for project level investments. If what you're doing is game as a service, then you can pursue company level investments. And you never cross those wires. It's two totally different tracks. I'm gonna put a link in the chat from a GDC lecture I did a couple of years ago on the difference between company and project-based funding. So Barak, check the chat for that GDC Vault link. It's one of the free lectures, and I strongly recommend you check out that lecture.
Thank you. So
I will ask my last question.
Yeah. Okay, of course.
I want to, when will you see both here in Turkey? I want to host you, Tony and Jason, after this COVID thing is over.
Please
be our guest. And
absolutely, more than happy to come. Like I said, I have a very close friend who just got married. Right out of Istanbul. So I mean, he's a game guy himself. I mean, I'd love to introduce him to you guys. He's Turkish, yeah. He's Turkish, yeah. So I mean, yeah, he would. I'll do some intros with you guys after this. I talked to him about your event, but he was tied up tonight.
Yeah, I think the question is, when's the GIST for 2022?
I'm not sure, but I will give you the information if I get it. After I get it.
Just waiting for my vaccine, and then I'm on the plane.
Okay. Let's see you in Istanbul, guys.
Yes, very nice. Very nice. Thank you very much for participation. Thanks, guys.
I want to
thank you for joining.
Thank
you. See you again.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.